Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we have our facilitator, Mary Oima. She is a regular speaker, and we are always excited, delighted to have our Grace Dislecton to share from our wealth of experience and knowledge, which she so gladly, generously do from time to time. Tonight, she has chosen a topic I'm particularly passionate and interested in: employer branding, strategy for employee attraction, and engagement. Notwithstanding, I would like to read very quickly a brief about her background. Mary is a talent management and people manager, mentor, trained life coach, change management agent. She is a strategic HR leader who is passionate about change and people. She has over 12 years experience in human resource operations generally, and our operation span of exposure covers sectors like aviation, trade, construction, real estate, and so on and so forth. She was the head of HR, Jemima Nigeria Limited, Merit Abode Limited, Grand Products Co. Limited. She's currently the HR lead for Aviatrix Hub. She has also worked with Sky Power Aviation Handling Company and Aricare in the past. She has a master's in peace and conflict from University of Ibadan. She's an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, and she served in various capacities. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to hand over control quickly to our facilitator for tonight, Mary, who will be speaking to us on the topic employer branding, okay, strategy for employee attraction and engagement. You have the floor, ma.
Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you for giving us the platform to also share from, I used to say, from a little wealth of knowledge and experience, and also the opportunity to also get to share with similar professionals like me. So to kick the ball rolling, yes, probably I should start first by asking our participants, when you get to hear, when you try to send in your application to organizations, what is that first thing that attracts you? I want to see your reaction in the chat room. When you send in your application to organization, what are those things that spur you to take that action? Or when you get to hear about some organization, what are those things that gives you the longing to send in your application, the longing to be a staff of that organization? Let's see your responses. I'm looking at the chat room. We are about 22 on this call. Thank you for taking our time to join. Let's see your responses. So while that is coming up, you find out that employer branding is a strategy for employee attraction and employee engagement. What are we going to look at? I'm still waiting for your responses. If you're free, if your hands are also free, you can just join. We just want to see what are those things that you look out for in an organization. Is it the salary? Is it the welfare? Like there are some that will say probably because this organization has a daycare center. So could that be the attraction for you? So looking at what we're going to share this evening in the next 40 minutes or thereabout, we're going to take a deep into a little definition of employers branding, the importance of employers branding. What are those components? What are those strategies that organization uses and some that can also adopt to build their brand? Are there measures put in place that's measuring employers' brand effectiveness? Are there challenges? And what can we do to elevate the employer's brand? So these are some of the areas we'll touch on for us to have a in-depth into what we're going to look. Okay, thank you. I can see a reaction from Mary said employer's brand, work mode, and salary. Another participant said salary package, bonus and welfare offer, employers branding the website. Oh, interesting. What they put out on their social media. Are they flexible? Is it their business? Is the business sustainable? Beautiful. Another response here says that company's culture, the salaries, staff welfare. When they say salary package, welfare of staff, company's culture. So we can see that we all have what attracts us to an organization. Another participant also said company's work culture, work mode, staff welfare. So we can see that the major points here has to do with company's culture, work mode, staff salary, the welfare, which is very, very key. So looking at the definitions of employers branding, we look at it from the angle of the reputation. The employer's brand also talks about the perception and the experience. Reputation in this case has to do with what is the company projecting to the outside world, and what are the people also perceiving about the organization, which also makes some candidate to send in application. For example, you have some organization, they will share their advert, and what do you get to see? You see over 300 applications being sent in. Is simply because virtually all the candidates will want to identify with that organization because of their unique culture, because of their unique brand, because of their unique value system. So employee branding here has to do with the outward message about who they are, the outward message which people needs to digest, and what makes them special. So we looked at it from two perspectives: to attract new talents as well as to enhance the appealing, also to enhance the existence of the organization. So in a nutshell, to attract new talent by enhancing the appeal of belonging, and also to retain employees, because it is when you retain employees that is when the organization can strive, and that is also the opportunity for the business to also expand. So if we look at it, there are some factors that comes to play: the employee recognition policy, the benefits, good salary, job security, the working condition. All these factors put together makes up employers branding. In one of the platforms that I belonged, I noticed someone sent in an advert for a particular organization, and within few minutes somebody responded back by saying, oh no, this is a toxic workplace, that he will not advise people to apply. And the very person that sent in the advert was quick to respond back to say, oh, thank you for your feedback. We have started working on those areas you pointed out. But please, if you have any other issues that you think we need to look at, kindly private chat me. So you can see the effort the lady tries to put in to do a kind of damage control. So in order not to get yourself to be in that kind of position as an organization, using the HR tool. So there are things that we can do to ensure that we don't get to that stage. And what does that mean? That means that we need to look at what is the importance. Do we understand the importance of having a positive employer brand? When we understand from that perspective, then it also helps. It helps us to also navigate beautifully on how and what to do. Why is it important for us to get to that point? Why is it necessary for organization to work on their brand? And this has to do with the fact that if the organization don't work on their brand, then there's tendency for the growth of their organization to be distorted. You also looked at the issue of competition. When the organization has a positive brand, it makes such organization to have advantage over other um, competitors in the business. You also find out that such organization has the opportunity to have their businesses being expanded to other region, to other, aside from even the country which the business also operate, to other countries and to other continents. You also have, when you have an organization that has effective employer branding, it also leads to excellent work-life balance. Excellent work-life balance. And these factors helps an organization to stay on top of their game. And so that is why when you have probably the government policies being brought to play, and the dollar rate not smiling and the pounds not also smiling, let me put it that way, you find out that an organization that has been able to get it right in the aspect of employee, the way they manage their employee, will also be able to stand tall when the heat comes. So no wonder that you find out that some organizations might have beautiful products, but when the employer branding aspect, when we talked about the welfare of the employees, the culture of the organization, the value proposition, when they are not at par with what is expected, you find out that the organization definitely stand a chance of struggling. The importance of employer branding also result in healthy workforce. When the brand is positive, when the brand is strong enough, you find out that the employees, while working in an environment that is flexible, they tend to bring in their best. They tend to walk the extra mile. They tend to go the extra mile. And that is why you find out that such organizations don't have workforce that practice presentation, presentism, so to say. You find out that at every minute, at every hour, at every second, they are striving to add value. They are striving to collaborate with the team. They are putting heads together to find out, okay, what are the issues? How can we troubleshoot these issues? They are thinking of a better way of providing solution, because the environment had also given them the enable environment. They stand out in the job market. And so which also takes the stress of the HR, because the brand itself speaks. And so everybody wants to identify with that organization. So when there is need to source for candidates, you find out that the HR will have it very easily. So it's not going to be having to send in advert. I get to see some organization send advert over and over and over and over again. So you now get to see that in such organization, the attrition rate is high. And when the attrition rate is high, it tends to destabilize the goals, the ecosystem of that organization. When you have an employer brand that is firm, you find out that the employees will serve as the ambassador of the organization. They serve as a brand ambassador. And so you get to find out that even when they leave the organization, they talk a lot about the organization. I know some organizations that I worked with that sometimes when I start to talk, I have to caution myself. So I tell myself, how many times are you going to talk about this organization? It's because of the value. And part of the value I got in some of those organizations has to do with the fact that they also groom individuals. They also groom employees to become leaders. So be you an office assistant, even if you are an officer, you have the opportunity of taking a decision, and then you should be able to justify and defend the decision you have taken. It's so long as that decision is also to ensure that the organization is not going to lose on the long run. It also helps in the employee retention, and this is the importance of employers branding. These are some of the points listed. You also find out that it also helps the organization not to lose revenue wise. It results in cost control. It results in cost when you have to reduce the time wasted in recruitment, when you have when you bring in employees that are not qualified, because when a brand is not solid, the tendency for the organization to recruit employees that are not firm, that are not up to par, is also there. Now, looking at the components of employers branding, we also looked at the issue of the culture. What is the culture of the organization? How are people perceiving the culture of the organization? What is the value system? The environment? Is it an organization that when you talked about reward system, and then when the staff had actually performed to the point of getting the reward, then another excuse comes up. I was having a conversation with a client this evening, and they made mention of, oh, some of the staff have performed well, and we need to reward them. Oh, this is what we want to do. This is what we want to do. That is it. So the employees are also sizing the organization up to see, is it an organization that says that we keep to time? So when organizations say we keep to time, and as at the time you are inviting the candidate for interview, for example, were they also able to keep to time? When you ask a candidate to come in for an interview by 8 a.m., when the candidate got to that venue, did the interview also start by 8 a.m.? Now, when do they also see some old staff that have been in the organization, let's say 15 years, 20 years, and some of them will tell the staff, after all, we've been in this organization 15 years ago, so who are you? You are just coming in, you are just coming in now. So who are you to suggest to us what we can do? Is it an organization that kills idea? Is it an organization that empowers the employee? Or is it an organization that only send a particular set of staffs, the old staff, the senior staff only for training, and neglects the upcoming staff? So that is part of what makes up the component of employers branding. Also look at the employee value proposition. What are those benefits? What does the employee stand to benefit? Is it tangible? Do they live up to expectation? And how is the organization being perceived by the outside world? When we talk about customer relation, when client calling into the organization, how has the staffs, for example, the customer relation officer, how have they been able to attend to the client? When there are issues with the government parastatals, the representative, how have they been able to represent the organization in serving as a middleman or a middlewoman to ensure that the organization does not lose, and so also getting the support of the government rep. So these are part of what makes up the component of employers branding. And if an organization don't get it right from this um, pyramid, you find out that the organization tend to struggle a lot of time in order to stay afloat, to beat the competition that is out there, because the organization is not just competing with itself. The organization is competing with so many other organizations. So if you now have an organization that has been able to get it right in terms of these components of employers branding, then you find out that they'll be able to stand the test of time. So we also looked at the strategies. After looking at the components, are there strategies that the organization is supposed to adopt in order to maintain the expectation of not just the internal staffs, but also the outside world? What are those strategies? In the chat room, when I asked the question, some people said the social media engagement. How is the organization using the social media? Do you also have your employees also making comments, also showcasing what the organization represents? We are not saying that when the employees don't come to the social media handle to talk about the organization, they should be penalized. No, but you find out that an employee that is happy with an organization will be quick to spread the gospel, will be quick to spread the information, will be quick to even showcase what the organization is doing, even in their own personal handle. You go to LinkedIn, you find that a lot of staffs showcase what the organization is into. And that is because they are proud to identify with the organization. So the organization, the employer that make do with social media engagement
showcase culture and employee stories. So now you find out that the employees themselves shares the good news, shares what they are benefiting to the outside world, and that serves as another avenue to attract more candidates, and also serve as an avenue for those employees to want to also remain longer in that organization. Now, looking at the career development. What is the career development policy? How does it look like? Is it robust enough for the employees to identify with? When an employee joins the organization as an intern, for example, as a management trainee, can that employee get to see that, okay, this organization have a goal for me, and the goal is that I need to grow to get to this career path? Does that employee have someone they can look up to? Is there a mentor in that organization, in the organization, that wants to handhold such employee? Yeah, there are some employees that may be struggling in trying to live up to expectation. What is the support that the organization is giving? You find out that an organization that invests so much in employees' development do not struggle to keep employees. And even when the employees leave, you find out that because they have been able to groom the employees excellently well, they don't struggle when it gets to replacing. So they have excellent succession planning on ground, because they've been able to close that gap through this career development. So an employee comes into an organization as a management trainee, or even as an office assistant, and there's that support. Yes, probably the organization is the type that maybe does not have leave grants for student that wants to go for examination leave. What are those other avenues you can use to help the employee? Is it something you can tell the employee that, okay, since you work Monday to Friday and your exam is Monday to Thursday, okay, take these 3 days off, and then we'll get somebody to cover your bit while we look for another arrangement on how to get those days back? How do you make the employee to feel relaxed while also trying to pursue their personal development goal? Because one thing we should also realize is that once an employee is stagnant, no matter the beautiful policies the organization is coming up with, it will be difficult for that employee to also run with it. But when an employee discovers that in terms of career development, the organization is also interested, you find out that that employee will also go the extra mile to also see what can he or she also do in order to up the game. What are those recognition programs? When someone has done excellently well, when you have a staff that is always punctual, is there a reward system? Or do you just overlook such staff, and also realizing that the staff is also dedicated to his duty or her duty? Do you reward someone that play lip service to his or her role? Do you reward someone that plays eye service? Is it when the MD is around, then you find the staff carry Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. You can continue.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please continue.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So these are parts of what the organization have to look at. The employer's branding is key, and HR have a role to play. Yeah, we know that the culture, the temperature of an organization, the culture of an organization starts from leadership. Yes, but we as HR, we also have a role to play, because sometimes it's possible that even the leader may not even be in the know of some of these issues. How do we come in? How do we look at the recognition program? Do we go to management to speak using data? How can we use data? Look at the attrition rate. What has been the way that people have been? What have been the way that people have been? What have look? What has been the way that people has been looking at the attrition rate of the organization? and how are we mitigating? So those are part of the information we take to the organization. Even look at the absenteeism record. Those are feedbacks. Take it to management, and then also work with feedbacks of the employee. How are you getting feedback of the employee to ensure that the brand is acceptable, to ensure that the brand stands tall with other brands that might be competing with the organization? How are you working to ensure that the organization stand in the positive light? What are you doing? You have your employees, you have the team you're working with. What are you communicating to them? Do you ask them, oh, how do you think we can perform better on this job? Now, looking at the employee testimonial, do you get employees sharing how the organization had helped them to benefit in one particular cause or the other? Or is it something concerning loan? Do you also bother to even check the pulse of the employees to see what are the stories they are sharing? Because these are part of the feedback you also get. And those are the feedback that will help the organization to look at the process and procedures and review the process, and also work on it as well in order to get to the limelight which the organization needs to. So these are part of what the organization needs to do. You look at the measures. What measures are we putting in place to ensure brand effectiveness? The brand needs to be very effective for it to stand the test of time. What are those measures put in place? Looking at the metrics in the recruitment process, is it something that we can see that the organization is also not wasting time, not spending too much time in the recruitment strategy? What time did the organization send out an advert? And what are those platforms we are using for the advert? And what is the time the organization is using to fill in those positions? Those are part of the feedbacks that could also help as a measure, part of the measuring tactics to use to ensure, to confirm how effective. Last 2 weeks I was watching a program on the television, and the particular guest said, if you want to know how the country is faring, put out an advert. Tell a particular organization to put out an advert, and you get to see the number of people that are employed. So that is data. So that is part of what we can do. Work with data to see what is it that we are doing right and what is it that we are not doing right. Employee satisfaction, what is it the statistics saying? How is the salary? What is the competitors also doing out there in terms of salary aspect? What is the organization also doing in terms of welfare? What are you comparing with? What are the competitors? And even if you have similar welfare package with competitors, then what are you doing to stand out in order for you not to be in the crowd? Because when you are in the crowd as an organization, you get lost in the crowd. So you need to stand tall in the crowd. And so those are part of what you can do. I had worked in an organization whereby the employer allowed the staffs once in a while to bring in their staffs. Their ward, their kids, if they have issues with where to take the children. And so they make arrangement. They look for a place close to the organization to say, okay, because we couldn't attend to this issue today, okay, take your child to this. And so there's an understanding with such facility. So what is the organization doing in order to stand tall? Look at the social media engagement. What is the reach? How many people is also identifying with the organization? So those are part of what organization can do to also assess how the organization is being accepted. And this will also help to mitigate any gap that may be so obvious and the organization might be found wanting in the process. So we need to really wake up to see. So this is 2025. And so don't say, oh, the organization does not have the finance, the wherewithal to do all this. And so because of that, we run foul. No, there are little things you can do. There are little things we can do as HR to step in, to also advise management for us to not to be found wanting, because that is part of what the organization wants to see. We brought you into this organization to bring value. So what value are you bringing in to the organization? What value are you setting in the organization in order to ensure that we are not found wanting? So this is very, very important. We find out that there are a lot of organizations that have been able to get it right. When we look at some organization, like for example, Google, they've been able to get it right. Like, why did I mention that brand? Because I know that it's a brand that a lot of people are familiar with, a lot of people want to identify with. And you find, what are they doing differently? There's room for innovation. The recruitment campaign is excellent. The culture of the organization is excellent. There's beautiful employee engagement. I read when someone was talking about the internship package, which he was able to enjoy having to carry out his IT in that organization. And then what happened? He said that joining the organization was not just interested in what he is
Yeah. Or is it just me? Can somebody drop a message in the chat box, please?
So the gentleman was trying to share, and he shared this on the social media page. So now, how did I get to see that information? Was because I visited the Google website and were able to see and able to read from what that particular person did share. So there's also the aspect of the organization in being interested to make the work environment to be friendly. There is room for innovation. You don't find an employee being shut down. You coming up with a suggestion, coming up with a lot of, you find out that there's an IT world. Everybody is hungry to come up with a bit different innovation. So you don't get this innovation being shut down. They try it out, they give them room to try it out. Even when it doesn't work, they keep trying, they come up with a new idea, get it excellently right. And so that's why you find out that if people go in there, they don't just go in there, they also grow individually. And then when they leave, they can live with the skill that they've also been able to get in the organization and be able to stand tall even outside. So when they go to the outside world, people get to ask, okay, oh, so where do you, oh, you are so talented, you are gifted, you are so knowledgeable, you are experienced in this area. Where do you say you work again? And so you find out that sometimes you find a lot of these employees able to brag about where they come from, where they've been able to get this experience. And that is what all organizations should be able to look at. What is it that some organizations are doing right? Which area can we also improve on and be able to get it to that one? So, but we know that there are challenges. There are challenges for some organizations in in ensuring that employer branding stand tall. Sometimes after a while, they give in to pressure. Sometimes they cannot maintain the energy, and so the energy drops. So there's issue of consistency. Yes, that also comes to play. And that is why from time to time, that feedback is necessary. That feedback is necessary. You want to be able to remain at the peak of the ladder. When you look at the triangle, you find the peak. You don't want to come down. You don't want to belong to the bottom line where all the other lower organizations play. Because when you play at that level, you don't become an employer of choice. And so the issue of consistency becomes a challenge. And so what do you do as an organization? You need to align all your policies and your processes to meet up to what the employer had depicted to the organization. It's just like when you have candidates come to contest. They tell you this is what we want to do, this is what we want to do, and that and all that. So, as an organization, what is your campaigning strategy? How are you aligning your campaigning strategy to be at par with what is expected? How can the outside world and the internal staff, how are they perceiving your representation? How are they perceiving your image? How are they perceiving the brand? So this is also an issue. When you say you stand for A, do you also carry it out when you talk about the value? when you look at the goal of the organization, the value, the mission statement of the organization, and when you look at what the management churn out, do you also see that to tally with the goal? How are you measuring it? So these are what we need to look at. And how are you also adapting to the changes? Because sometimes when changes come in, it also affect the brand of the organization. So you need to evolve to see which area can we change. This is 2025. We have been doing it, we have been doing carrying out our activities in a particular way all these years, 2024, 2023. Do we need to do it the same way and still expect to hit that target? Because
Are we here? Me, I can't hear. Oh. Hello. Please drop a message in case we can hear her so that I'm not interrupting our flow. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Let's just wait for her. Mary, we can't hear you in case you can hear us.
we look at those challenges that have been spelled out. Now, the next thing to do is, what are those strategies? Are there things that we can do, that the organization can do as well, that HR can do in order to work on this area? We need to really up our game in this aspect. Assess assess the current brand. How is the brand being fair? We also need to look at that. Conduct internal and external survey. You cannot get it wrong when you are so sincere, and when you need to carry out this survey. If you need a consultant to do it for you, go ahead, because you know what you are trying to aim at. Don't say because you want to cut down on cost, you play down on carrying out external survey. This is very key. Develop your strategy, create comprehensive branding plan. And when you're creating this comprehensive branding plan, it is not what one person alone can do. You need all parties need to put hands together to look at what do we need to shake up. What kind of employees are we bringing in? Do we actually have the right type of employees to push what the CEO is trying to push, the goal of the organization? Do we really have the right employees? Where do we need to get them? So if it is the area of the set of talent that is on ground, and the reward system, if we say we want to go for the best, the organization needs to work on the reward system in order to be able to get such staff and be able to keep them, because you will never have high flyers coming to an organization, and the very day they are coming to organization, they are also planning their exit because of the temperature they are also perceiving from the organization. They monitor and adjust continually, keep improving on on this process. Carry out your survey. Datas don't lie. Monitor it back to back. Have a team that check out the pulse of the organization. If it has to do with a line manager's supervisory role, don't say because of that you want to kick out the line manager immediately, because that line manager may not know. So that means you also need to get a coach for that line manager. You need to get a coach for the team. You need to get a mentor to also help them to shine. And so when we use that process, you find out that we will be able to get it right, and then we'll be able to do it well. So it is not a time for an organization to start thinking of, oh, we are not getting it right, so let me sack all the staff, because probably that's where the issues are coming from. No, when we get it right holistically, we'll be able to do that, and then that way we'll be able to say a beautiful thank you to the staff. That way the staff can see that yes, the organization is also interested in our growth, and so the staff will also be willing to also impact the organization positively. Thank you so very much. So I don't know if there are questions. We need to, if you have your questions, you can share your questions. Let me look at the chat room and see if I can find any questions there. Thank you for your attention. I'm not sure I've seen any. Please, if there's any questions that have been shared before, you can put it on the platform. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir. Doctor.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like to ask any question, all you need to do is unmute and we will give you the floor. Let's see if there are any virtual hands raised right now. Anybody, any contribution, or maybe it's not a question, maybe it's a comment, a contribution. Want to tell us very quickly how you enhance your employer brand in your organization. Trying to see. Okay. We should have at least one question and one comment. Okay, Ayokunu. Let me look for you and enable you to unmute. Okay, you can go ahead, Ayokunu. If any other person to ask questions, please. Raise
Good
your
evening,
hands, please.
sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much for this great opportunity and avenue. Hello.
We
Please
can hear you.
proceed with
Can you hear
your
me?
question.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Ma, I discovered that in your presentation, you mentioned a whole lot of in terms of rebranding. I discovered that we have so much things to inject in terms of finances. So looking at all this put together, if probably maybe the push is coming from probably maybe from the HR that we need to do a kind of rebranding, looking at the previous history of the organization existence. Considering this training this evening, I discovered that there are a whole lot of money that needs to be injected in this thing. How do we manage to convince the employer to see that the side of the cost is not what is actually paramount in this, but other than the aftermath of what we are going to get in terms of value? Because I discovered that a whole lot of money, because even from the beginning of the cadre to the very echelon of the organization, we need to probably maybe send some persons on training, this and that, to ensure that we are able to manage those that are the lower cadre appropriately. So looking at all these things put together, how do we manage that to ensure that the rebranding is going to be sellable to the employer, or probably maybe the managing directors of the organization? That is just my question, sir.
Thank you so much. Mary, you want to react to that? Hello, Mary. I'm checking if there are any other contributions. Okay, so I see another question here. Mary, I can't hear you. I hope you can hear me. I see a question on the chat from Alazan. It says, what are the strategies to put in place to promote employer branding? I suspect maybe you did not join the webinar from the beginning. Don't worry, the webinar will be uploaded tonight on YouTube. Just go to Oluyemi Adeosun on YouTube. The webinar will be uploaded. All right. I see another question from Amaka. Amaka, you can now ask your question. It's just that I'm not 100% sure Mary can hear us or she's still on the call. But go ahead with your question, Amaka. You can unmute, please. Hello, Amaka. Is it my network or Amaka's
Good evening.
network?
Thank you so much,
Okay, good evening.
everyone. Thank you, Mary, for this insightful session. My question, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please proceed.
Hello, can you hear me?
Amaka, please go on with your question.
Okay, my question I want to ask is, from an experience I had in a place I worked, right? I remember when I joined the company. In fact, I think it was my first experience, and I met a couple of people. Okay, as a new employee, I just had a few, I think about a 1 year experience then. And when I joined the company, I remember one particular guy, he was serving in the company at the time, you know, and he will tell me so many things, negative things about the company. You understand how the MD was very wicked, how said, well, this is where he's serving. After his service, he was going to leave. Now, while on the job, because I actually got the job through somebody who is a friend of the MD. So I wasn't going to leave abruptly and offend the person who referred me for the job. Plus, I've learned that people are usually not what they seem. Now, while on the job, I began to observe because our MD then, who owned the company, was not a regular at the office. He had his own paid job. So he would usually come to, you understand, the works for one of these multinational oil companies. And then he will come, sorry, I'm taking your time. He will come to the office. So most times it was just us. He will assign tasks to us. And so it was just us doing the work. And then in the evening, he will come around, he will look at what we've done and all that. And then I would come to work very late. So work resumes by 8. Sometimes he comes by 11. Some days he won't even come at all because the MD comes in the evening. We close at 4. So, I mean, before the MD will come, so he was very truant. He wouldn't get the job done. You know, he had so many vices. I personally, as a young person, I was very irritated by the character of the guy. He was my colleague, but I was irritated by his attitude because I felt you're being unfair because there's nobody. This is the same person that was telling me how terrible him, that if there was anybody terrible, it was him. You understand? So, now we're talking of employer branding. This guy already is damaging the brand of a business. The MD, I didn't report him, but one of the days the MD came and he wasn't at work. And he couldn't explain. I called him to say, the MD is here, you better find your way. He told me to lie, said I wasn't going to lie. So you either find your way to this place or you come and you answer to it. And then eventually he was fired because of that. So now this same person is going to go out there to be selling the same crap stories that he's selling to people outside, knowing fully well that he was the problem. The company, because I worked in that company and it was one of the best places I worked. I left the company because I got a job on the leave. Otherwise, I would have stayed. It was a very fantastic place to work and all that. So how do you, as an employer, how do you manage a situation whereby your brand is being stained by people who, you know, who are doing something wrong? It's not necessarily because maybe the company is bad or the management is terrible. It's just that there are people who are very nasty. I mean, over the Christmas holidays, we saw so many stories of employees that stole. There's this perfume store from the employer, and people were saying, this woman is very good, though. She takes care of her staff. She's very, but the staff still stole. Now, maybe this same staff is going to go out there to say something nasty about the woman because she was arrested and all that. So how do you manage, how do you handle this kind of situation where people who are trying to smear your brand are actually the bad people? And but you know, because the sympathy is always with the employees, because when there is an issue, you just realize that a lot of people on social media are ready to attack employers and say all nasty things without even giving them a chance to want to continue to encourage the bad people. So they just keep out. So, but I feel like it's very unfair. So now that we're discussing this, how do you, as the HR, handle this, or an employer handle this kind of situation where a bad staff is trying to smear your image, just, you know, for whatever evil reason he has?
you so much. And that will be the final question we'll be taking via voice. And then we'll react to a question by Stella Maris on the chat. We need to wrap up now because we have another session in 9 minutes. Thank you so much for that question. I'll respond with a few quick points. First and foremost, when an employer or an organization has an image in the marketplace, it is typically not the image created by a few people. It is created by the majority. So if your organization has 500 staff, give or take, maybe 300 or more than half will probably never see anything. They will just be neutral. Then you have some people who will be extremely happy with the organization, and some people will be extremely or possibly somewhat unhappy with the organization. Now, one of the essence of tonight's session is that as the HR or as a member of management of the organization, the onus lies on you to put out positive word about your organization in the marketplace. We're not saying you should lie or create stories that are not real, but you have to put out positive information. The reason is it's very possible that you are treating people well, but they are quiet. But then a few people, whether like in the context you just painted, who they themselves are the problem, will be the one to be maligning the reputation of the organization. So what you want to do is to make sure that you have the majority voice speaking the truth, and in this context, the truth is positive. I won't mention there's a country, a lot of people say that country has a lot of Yahoo. If you look at the total population of the country, do you want to tell me that up to 5% of that country's citizens are into Yahoo? But they are loud. So, which means don't let the minority evil or minority bad news overshadow the majority. It can easily overshadow the majority if the positive communication doesn't go out there. That's why all the strategies Mary had shared, use your social media positively, your internet, your website, use it positively, stories and stories and stories. So bottom line is that if you are predominantly a good organization and you have a good HR team working in close concert with your marketing communication team or your media team to project the right positive image consistently and continuously. But if inherently you are largely not good, propaganda won't cut it. Let me quickly respond to Stella Maris' question, which is about essentially initially management provided support, midway they withdrew the support, and then now HR is tired. My HR colleague, please try and find out why, because one thing that I know is that typically they won't even provide support in the first place. So for them to provide the initial support, there must have been a justification and interest. Find out what got them interested ab initio in the first place. Then troubleshoot further. What led to a withdrawal of this interest or a decline of this interest? Somehow, you may be able to get insights to know whether this is something you can recover or salvage, or this is a lost cost. But do your best, please. It is not every time that any small thing you will resign and change your job and move on to another organization, because you may still meet a similar situation or context in another organization. So as much as possible, let's ensure we exhaust the cycle we are in and we develop skills, capabilities, and competencies to work around problems. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank Mary once again for this excellent presentation. I would like to enable all of us to unmute so that we can thank her, can verbalize our appreciation for her. Mary, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please say thank you to our facilitator for tonight as we wind down this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
A very big thank you, Mary.
Thank
We
you
appreciate
so much.
it.
Thank you.